Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. For today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Transcraft TC-02 Transformers Bumblebee movie, Cliffjumper. Now I picked mine up over at Shozy Store, so for those of you looking to add this guy to the collection, I'll of course be sure to pack a link down in the description box below. And the main reason that I actually delved in and picked this guy up was simply down to the fact that, at least in my opinion, we haven't as of yet seen a definitive version of Cliffjumper as he appeared in Transformers Bumblebee. The Studio Series figure was pretty inaccurate, especially when in comparison to, say, the likes of Hasbro's RC Ironhide, and even, to be fair, their version of Optimus Prime, and that left this third-party piece looking to be the best, at least where the robot mode is concerned. Now, considering for the most part this is just a straight-up repaint slash incredibly minor retool of the original Transcraft Beetle, there are a lot of inaccuracies, especially in regards to the vehicle mode. Sadly, we never in fact actually see Cliffjumper live long enough in the film to escape the capture of Shatter and Dropkick to in fact actually make it onto Earth. So I do kind of wish they would have modified the front section of the Volkswagen just to better resemble that of, say, a Cybertronian alt mode, but for the most part it really doesn't look too bad, and at least for me I'm going to be always keeping this guy here in his robot form. So you can see the Volkswagen looks just as good as it did on the original Transcraft Beetle. It's been completely decked out in this wicked looking red. The paint really is immaculate on this guy. There are barely any blemishes nor chipping, and I have in fact actually transformed him quite a few times. And for those of you who own either this mold or of course their version of Bumblebee, you guys know that the transformation is super involved. Now, as we bring it in here for a closer look, as far as the detailing for the front of the Beetle is concerned, I think that looks fantastic. Even the tiny little grooves in the headlights have been clearly replicated, and I think the sculpt work here for the hood looks awesome, as well as the silver trim that we've got going around the front windscreen and that singular side view mirror. Now, as we take a look at him here from a side perspective, as mentioned previously, the transformation is super involved, so there's always going to be a mode of which is compromised, and luckily it was the vehicle mode. And you guys may be wondering, why on earth am I saying luckily? Well, I personally have always thought that if there were to be a mode that was sacrificed, I'd much rather it be the vehicle mode when in comparison to the robot mode. And considering we never really see Cliffjumper transform in the film, this really doesn't bother me whatsoever. So of course there are various different cracks in the panel lining, but once again, not looking too bad at all. We've got some nice silver there for the hubcaps, and the wheels are in fact actually cast out of rubber, which I thought was pretty decent, or should I say the tyres. And as we just take a look here at the rear of the Volkswagen, we've got a die-cast bumper which has been sculpted really nicely, and once more you can see the sculpt work here at the back for the most part looks super impressive, and he can in fact actually glide along the ground with absolute ease. If only he had transformed in the film in order to escape Dropkick and Shatter, maybe he would have lived long enough to actually scan an Earth form. Now, in regards to accessories, they're basically exactly the same as Bumblebee. So first up here we have the Stinger Blaster. This too I also think is inaccurate. I believe that Cliffjumper actually had a pistol when on Cybertron, but nevertheless we've got some nice metallic silver here for this piece which will actually clip onto the arm. The same red as seen on the vehicle mode, as well as some gunmetal there for the nozzle, and two distinctive looking blades. So here we've got one of which is slightly sharper in design, at least in my opinion is my favourite out of the two, and then the final weapon is of course a similar type of blade, but is a lot more rounded where the tip is concerned. Now, considering that I've already showcased the transformation of the original Beetle from robot into vehicle mode, I will merely just be skipping over the transformation for this particular video, so I definitely recommend to check out my original Beetle review for those of you who wish me to go in depth for the transformation. So all that being said, we'll get Cliffjumper fully transformed up into robot mode, and of course directly compare him alongside his Transcraft brother. And so here is the Transcraft Bumblebee movie Cliffjumper fully transformed up into his robot mode. And if I'm going to be honest, this was the mode that I was the most looking forward to, in fact, actually showing off to you guys, as at least in my opinion, this looks awesome. Now, from an engineering perspective, I always thought that the original Transcraft Beetle was mind-blowing. What some of these third-party companies are now able to do in terms of matching the movie accuracy of the robot forms, and even to an extent the vehicle forms, is just incredible. And they really are giving Takara Tomy a run for their money. Now, in regards to the Cliffjumper design, I think the pieces of which they have modified really do make this, upon first glance, to look almost 100% dead accurate to how Cliffjumper sadly very briefly appeared in Transformers Bumblebee. Now, as we just bring him in here for a closer look, you can see that one of the brand new retooled elements that we actually have got going on here would be that head sculpt, and I think it looks really impressive. You can see we've got this nice gunmetal applied to the actual faceplate. They've kind of tried to give him an almost expression where the mouth is concerned. Perhaps he's just realised that he's about to be split straight down the middle, but as far as the attention to detail is concerned for the actual red helmet itself, I think it looks awesome. We've got some of the subtle detailings, such as the horns there at the top, and even as we spin our attention to the back, once more, this has actually been sculpted and painted pretty nicely. Now, they've also completely modified these two front sections. These sadly don't in fact actually become the front of the Beetle in vehicle mode, so they do utilize some faux components, but this is indeed actually the look that his Cybertronian vehicle mode would have sport. So you can see they're a little more stylized when in comparison to your standard Beetle headlights, and I think look really cool. They've been rounded off and do in fact actually have this red strip which goes straight through the middle. But other than that, the figure is literally just a straight up repaint of Transcraft Bumblebee. You can see as far as the paintwork of the arms are concerned, I think that looks really nicely done. Even as we take a look at them here from a side perspective, you can see from head to toe this figure has been pretty much fully decked out in some form of paint. And we've got some red highlighting here for the actual front piece of the arm. And here, as far as the attention to detail is concerned, it's incredibly movie accurate to what we actually saw on screen. We've got some gunmetal used for these sections around the hips. And as we just spin our attention down here to the lower section, for those of you who actually watched the transformation tutorial that I gave on my original Transcraft Beetle, you guys know how much of the vehicle mode actually stores away here in the lower legs. And it's mind-blowing. The fact that the shape of the leg is so accurate to how it appeared on the movie is just incredible. And we do in fact actually get some die-cast components with this guy. Most noticeably would be here for the back section of the knees, and I also believe there's some die-cast where the torso is concerned. But just check out the way that those faux tail lights actually become the back section there of Cliffjumper's feet. It's just such an extraordinary looking design, and even here from a back profile you can see some fantastic looking spinal sculpt, as well as these door wings, which are in fact inaccurate. It would have been cool if they had found a way to maybe just include interchangeable pieces, as these are on ball joints. So if we could have popped them off and perhaps had installed some Cybertronian components, I think that would have looked pretty cool. But nevertheless, you can see the sculpt work there for the back looks wicked, as so does it here for the back of the legs. We've even got some nice details of what appear to be almost shocks here at the back of where the thighs would be. And as we just work our way down once more here to the base, the sculpt work is really impressive. Now, in regards to articulation, the head has got a fantastic range. So this can look up all the way, mainly due to transformation, as well as can look down, tilt ever so slightly side to side, as well as rotate there left to right. We do get a full rotation here at the shoulder, hinge joint out to the side, and due to transformation, I guess you could kind of make this act as a butterfly joint, which is pretty cool. We do get a full rotation here at the bicep, as well as a way past 90-degree range here at the elbow, only on a single hinge joint. And due to transformation, we also do get a lower forearm swivel. The wrist can rotate the full 360, as well as hinge back and forth due to it being on a ball joint, and the fingers are also articulated, so these three are conjoined, whereas the thumb here is completely independent. We do get a completely unhindered waist rotation, which is fantastic. The hips can kick forwards that far, which for a transformable figure, in my opinion, is pretty much mind-blowing, as well as back, I would say roughly to about that far before they kind of begin to bump into some of the torso components. They can hinge out to the sides, rotation here at the thigh, as well as a 90-degree bend there at the knee. And just check out how some of those components do in fact actually work together. For a transforming figure, I think that is a really, really nice piece of engineering. And then finally, as far as the foot goes, this can rock forwards and backwards, but it is kind of restricted due to all of the junk that actually gets packed away within these legs. So overall, at least here for robot mode, I think it's fantastic. And as mentioned previously, I really do believe this to be the best version that can transform off Cliffjumper as he appeared in Transformers Bumblebee. It's just sad to see that Transcraft didn't take this guy slightly further as far as the vehicle mode is concerned, as had they given him a Cybertronian form, without a doubt this would probably be a contender of one of the best Cliffjumpers of all time. Now, in regards to some of the weapon integration, we'll very quickly bring out the Stinger Blaster. If my memory serves me correctly, there is a peg here on the inside of the arm that you basically just snap that there into, and then this will peg into the palm of the hand, and then you just wrap the thumb over so it looks as if though it's transformed out of Cliffjumper's arm. And you can have him firing away at dropkick and, of course, shatter, as he really should have done in the movie, instead of just standing there and pretty much waiting to be sliced in half. And then as far as some of the blades are concerned, these do simply just slide over the top of the forearm, just like so. So definitely pretty decent look here for our Transcraft Cliffjumper. Now, turning here to some comparisons, here we have the Transcraft Beetle Bumblebee, and of course their new version of Cliffjumper. And as mentioned previously, Cliffjumper is basically just a straight up repaint, minor retool of Bumblebee, and I've still got to give props to that original Beetle figure. I think it looks incredible. The attention to detail, the accuracy they were able to capture here with the robot mode makes this undeniably the best transforming version of Bumblebee as he appeared in his solo movie. And whilst this here is a nice repaint, I definitely think that Transcraft could have done a little better with this guy had they completely reshelled that vehicle mode. I would have loved for this to have in fact actually converted into a Cybertronian mode, but considering we never see him convert in the movie, I guess that they probably thought that it wasn't worth their while. But very similar in terms of design, much like they were in the film, and I really do think some of the differences they've made here to the torso and just the overall colour scheme really do make these guys look distinctive from one another in order to better match how they would have appeared had they actually been together in that Bumblebee movie. And here for a more traditional Takara Tomy and Hasbro masterpiece comparison, here we have the MPM-12 Optimus Prime. Now granted, I do have all of the DNA design upgrade components installed, so he's a little bigger when in comparison to the stock release, but in terms of a scale, I actually think these guys pair really nicely with one another. In the movie, the Cliffjumper CGI model and the Cybertronian Bumblebee were basically exactly the same, and this is really and truly the scale that we saw between B and Prime in the movie, so I do think that for the most part, this guy is going to look really nice with some of those official Hasbro and Takara figures. And so, some final thoughts for this Transcraft TC-02 Transformers Bumblebee MPM style Cliffjumper. Overall, for a repaint and slight retool, I think for the most part it's actually turned out really nicely. Of course, it is incredibly expensive still for just a minor retool slash repaint, so I can definitely see this not appealing to the vast majority of collectors like that original Transcraft Beetle. Had Transcraft actually modified the vehicle mode to better resemble that of a Cybertronian vehicle mode, I really do think this figure would have appealed to a much larger audience, but considering there aren't many modifications made to the base mold, and to be honest, Cliffjumper really didn't appear that much in the movie, I can really see this guy sadly not selling as well as their version of Bumblebee. But if you're like me and are looking for what is at the moment the best version of Cliffjumper as he appeared in Transformers Bumblebee that can transform, then without a doubt this is the best figure out there on the market. I think as far as the actual attention to detail, so the robot mode is concerned, it looks awesome. Considering Bumblebee and Cliffjumper shared for the most part the exact same robot mode design, this guy is pretty much spot on to what we actually very briefly saw of him in the film. I think the new modified pieces are a really nice inclusion, such as that head sculpt and that Cybertronian chest piece, but I really would have loved them to have taken this slightly further, even if they had just included some of his more movie accurate weapons such as the pistol instead of a rehash of the Stinger Blaster. I just think that it would have better made this guy stand out as an independent release instead of that of just a straight up repaint of Bumblebee. Whilst the Volkswagen mode is of course incredibly inaccurate to the film, much like Transcraft Beetle, it still is a pretty decent mode, and I guess you could kind of call it Cliffjumper's Earth mode had he in fact actually lived long enough to make it onto Earth with B127. So with all that being said, if you are after a transforming version of Cliffjumper that better matches what we actually saw on screen, then I would definitely give this guy a recommendation, and of course I'll be sure to pack a link down in the description box below where he is currently available and in stock over at Showsy's store. I would love to know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Is this a figure that you guys plan to add to the collection, or do you think that maybe it's slightly too pricey for a character of which didn't have a lot of screen time and for a figure of which doesn't have that many modifications made to better match his on-screen CGI model where that vehicle mode is concerned? As always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.